Deborah was a UCSD employee for some 31 years, where she worked in the Vice Chancellor's Office for Student Affairs and for Human Resources. But most importantly for us, she is a lifelong chocolate enthusiast. So Deborah, take it away. John, you can take down the slides, and Deborah, you can share.
Okay. Thank you, Suzanne, for your introduction, and welcome everybody. I'm so happy to be here this morning to share with you some recipes and some ideas so that you can make your very own version of a chocolate-centered charcuterie to be a sweet little Cupid. What is charcuterie? Well, originally charcuterie, which is French for a vendor of or a display of cured meats. In typical American fashion, we took the word, a French word for food, because we think that's somehow better, Americanized the pronunciation, charcuterie, and changed the meaning. So usually here, it's typically a platter or a board or a tray of meats and cheeses and accompaniments, dips, spreads, crackers, fruit, nuts, that sort of thing. Well, if I'm going to do a charcuterie chocolate, and mine is based on puns, visual puns, so my name is also a word pun of a chocuterie. Charcuterie is so in. A couple of weeks ago, I saw an ad for some dog treats that was a chocuterie. So it's really in. And this week, Trader Joe's has an ad for their charcuterie of things you can just buy there at the store. The recipes I'm going to show you today and the ideas are so easy and so quick on purpose that you can be making these things tomorrow for a family get together for 5, on Sunday for a football party for 20, if you do that sort of thing, and on Monday, Valentine's Day, for an intimate tete-a-tete, or just for yourself, because who better knows what you like. These are fun and quick and scalable. That's one of the good things about charcuterie. You have lots of little pieces of food, so you can adjust larger or smaller, whatever you want. You also usually make items ahead of time so that during the event, you can participate in the event because you put the food out for people to take themselves. Sanitarily, hopefully, and I'll talk about that a little bit as we go along. First recipe, and you have either been sent or will soon be sent the recipes by the wonderful folks at the Retirement Association. First recipe is what inspired me to do the idea of a chocuterie, and that's a chocolate salami. It's not at all savory. It's called a chocolate salami just because it looks like one. It's basically broken up cookies, stirred with melted chocolate and cream, and made to look like a salami. Okay, broken up cookies. What kind of cookies? Lots of choices there. Typically, it will be something like a tea biscuit. This is a tea biscuit kind of thing. Relatively thin, relatively crisp. Something that's not chocolate because you want a color contrast so that it looks more like the fat part of a salami. Could be a digestive biscuit, could be graham crackers, could be a shortbread sort of thing. On the Patty's Mexican Table TV show on PBS, she said she grew up with Maria biscuits in Mexico. You can get those at any store. I happen to like this one, which is German, the Paulsen company of cookies, the Leibniz cookies, because this has real butter in it. It's the third ingredient after the flour and sugar. I mentioned Mexico for chocolate salami. It's in lots of countries, and probably the most common one is Italy, from what I read. There, it will often have nuts in it, for example, pistachios or hazelnuts, maybe dried fruit. Everybody's recipe all over the world is different. This one is about the most simple one I've seen, and personally, it's what I would like best, so that's awfully convenient. Ooh. Okay, here I am rudely losing my earbud and coming back. Okay, the recipe you have is enough to make 2 salamis. What I'm making right now is 1, so you're only going to see half the ingredients if it looks small. The other one I made yesterday, the other half of the recipe, and that's in the fridge so I can finish it off for you, show you how the end of the process is done. Break up the cookies. How big? Bits. I measured some yesterday for you, about a 1/2 inch. The idea is they're small enough that you can get a mouthful of chocolate and cookie each time, and the chocolate can surround it so it can soften up a bit. So you just break those up into a bowl. Then you mix together the chocolate and the cream. For a full recipe, it's 5 to 6 ounces of the cookie, and this is a full recipe is 6 ounces of bittersweet chocolate and a 1/2 cup of heavy cream and 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. If you don't have unsalted butter, regular butter will be fine. For the chocolate, I usually use my favorite, and if you've seen any of my other chocolate demos, I always talk about this one. Sorry, I have small ears and it's hard for me to wear the earbuds. My favorite everyday chocolate to use is the Ghirardelli 60% chips that you can get in any grocery store. A lot of chocolate chips don't melt too well, but these do because they don't have all the stabilizers in them that a lot of brands of chocolate chips have. I may not have heated this enough in the microwave here, but I'm not used to doing this small an amount, so I'm cooling it. You just stir together the cream and chocolate and butter that you melt gently, we hope, so that you don't burn the chocolate. And then you mix in the cookies, and that's all there is to it. Okay, I don't have the butter melted yet, so this will need a few more seconds. Or I'll just keep stirring. Okay, this is so hard and complex to do. Stir in the melted cookies. Stir the cookies into the melted chocolate. And it doesn't look, as I'm doing this, like it's going to be enough chocolate, but it actually is. This recipe is very imprecise, very loose. You don't have to be precise on any of these 3 recipes I'm making this morning, which helps a lot for making it easy. The hardest part is probably the good old putting out the plastic wrap so you don't get it totally creased up. You just take this lovely mix and put it on some plastic wrap and shape it to look something like a salami. In other words, to shape it into a tube. This doesn't bake in the oven, so it really doesn't matter. You can do pretty much anything you want. Very soft at this point. I'm just going to take it and wrap it up in plastic wrap and sort of make it a log. A nifty tip I saw recently, somebody showed, is if you twist the ends of the plastic wrap, you can just roll it on the counter and it helps turn it into the shape you want, into a log easily. Very soft, very flexible. So now it goes into the fridge for an hour or 2. Ta-da! Here's the one I made yesterday. It's almost done. One of the wonderful things about this recipe is it freezes great. So you can make this a month or 2 ahead of time. The only thing you want to do is wait until your You're serving it to put some powdered sugar on the outside to help it look like a salami. Even when it's refrigerated, it's good to wait till near when you're going to serve it to put the powdered sugar on, just because it's going to soak in the powdered sugar eventually. It'll sit around for a few hours and be fine. So the high-tech finish for this is that you just sprinkle on some powdered sugar and rub it around. Now, I had the thought that if you wanted to make this for a football-themed party, you could shape it like a football, because you can shape it to be anything. And if you did that, then you might want to rub it with cocoa instead of powdered sugar, or cocoa sifted with a little bit of powdered sugar so it's not quite so bitter. Just rub it around. Now, how high-tech was that? Here, you have a salami. And then all you have to do is cut it. Once again, you made it any size you want, but this looks like a typical store-bought salami. And then you can set it out on your tray. This is what a slice looks like. It looks somewhat like a salami. And how cute is that? My husband is on the camera and helping, and he's going to even show it off to you. And he gets to have some of this later.
Deborah, that looks wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Now, because that's so flexible, today we're making the visual pun of a salami, but you could do anything, I was thinking. Vernal equinox or Easter, you could shape it like an egg. You could turn it into a snowman for a winter celebration, whatever you want. I'm moving this knife out of the way. That's your first item of the visual pun. Next one is a sweet cheese ball. Traditionally, a charcuterie tray might have a cheese ball on it. That's always popular around here. Well, this one is a sweet cream cheese ball. That's your next recipe in the packet that you're getting or email. The recipe for making one this size is just 4 ounces of cream cheese and a 1/4 cup of unsalted butter. That's half a stick or 1/8 of a pound. Let those sit around and soften up for a while. Beat them together. Mixer is a big help. Then beat in 1/3 of a cup of powdered sugar and a tablespoon, a tablespoon of brown sugar and a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. And then stir in 1/3 cup of miniature chocolate chips. It's very soft. At that point, put it in the fridge to firm up before you can roll it in something. I said miniature chocolate chips because they're a big help. This is soft, as I said. If you use regular sized chocolate chips, it's hard to cut between them to serve it, and it's hard to eat it. It's such a soft, delicious, melt in your mouth texture on the cream cheese part that if you have big, hard chocolate chips, the cream cheese mix is going to melt in your mouth before you eat the chocolate. So you eat one at a time. It's still delicious, but you're heading for eating them together with the miniature chips, then you can eat them at the same time. That is another thing that freezes beautifully. You can freeze that for a long time before you use it. So feel free to make more. It helps to roll it closer to the time you serve it for most things. Since I rolled this in miniature chocolate chips, more of them, I could freeze it just like that. You can roll it in nuts, which would be the closest to a typical cheese ball, savory cheese ball, or you can roll it in chopped up cookies or ground up cookies. You might want to think what you're going to serve it on which would often be some kind of cookie, so that you don't do the same thing. Might as well have some variety just for fun. Could be regular graham crackers, cinnamon graham crackers, chocolate graham crackers. Those all sound good to me. It would taste kind of like a cheesecake when you do that for the outside. Serve it on another. It could be vanilla wafers. It could be something like a piece of dried fruit. I was thinking this would probably be tasty smeared on a dried apricot. Wouldn't that be fun? What I put today is I made some chocolate graham cookies for the first time and cut them in heart shapes. And then I can put those with the cheese ball to serve it on. Tastefully displayed by putting a few of the cookies around the edge. At this point on a tray, it's time for a spread. It would probably be something like a savory jam or something on a savory charcuterie. So for me, I figured that raspberry jam would go really nicely with this. And it would, people would serve their own jam to go with this. And a great idea I read is, if you're not going to be instructing people when you're showing them their tray, what could help is do a sample. So go ahead, I'm losing this. Go ahead, cut the cheese ball, a slice of it, put it on your cracker or cookie, whatever you're using. Put a dollop of the jam on top of it and set it near the tray so people can see, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do with that. Next item, one more recipe for you, are chocolate pomegranate bites. Now these are a candy, very pretty in our red Valentine kind of theme with fresh pomegranates. All you do to make these is melt, for example, 4 ounces of bittersweet chocolate. Guess what I would use? My old friend. And then stir in a 1/4 teaspoon of oil and about a 1/4 cup of fresh pomegranate arils. Arils are just the seeds of a pomegranate. It's the special kind of seed a few fruits have with that gel on the outside. Stir the arils. The only catch here is have the arils be dry and around room temperature. Otherwise, your chocolate might seize up. If you de-seed your own pomegranate, and I haven't found them in the store in the last couple of weeks, then you'll rinse them, so those will need to sit there and dry. If you buy pomegranate arils, you can get them in this size, double this, and triple sometimes. They're already done, and all you have to do is let them come to room temperature if you're willing to pay the price for these lovely creatures. I didn't use this whole small packet yesterday, so there I am with some extra pomegranate arils. What do you do with them? You put some of them in sparkling juice, like a sparkling apple juice or cider or champagne, and that's fun. Or else you just put them on your oatmeal, or you put them on your yogurt or a salad or something. They don't keep long. They only keep for a couple of days after they're open. So use them up. This recipe then for the pomegranate bits won't freeze well. Trying to read up yesterday to find out if it would. They get mushy when they defrost. The one other time I made these, I put them in the fridge and tried one a day to see how long they keep. And the first 4 days or so, they were great. And after that, then they've got kind of watery as the arils started to break down. So this one you need to do not too far ahead, a day or two. All 3 of these items, maybe I should just go one ear. All 3 of these items, you make ahead. All 3 of them are fine to sit out for several hours for your party. You just store them in the fridge. You have to store the chocolate one in the fridge because of the fruit, and the chocolate is not tempered. And you have those. Well, what else goes with this kind of treat? time for fruit, probably. If you're going for a red theme, that's perfect. But I think the best fruit of all with chocolate is raspberries. And they can be pretty heart-shaped. So that's particularly apt. Other fresh fruit that's lots of fun to go with red grapes, not particularly good with chocolate, but they're refreshing and they're pretty. Cherries are great with chocolate. Now, I wouldn't necessarily spread things out all individually these days because of trying to be more sanitary. A typical charcuterie in America these days, you see pictures, is a board or a tray or a platter, a plate, it doesn't matter. Totally covered. Can't see the device underneath because the food is all mounted in together. I'm not a fan of that because in order for me to take mine, unless there's really good serving items, I have to touch the food that other people are going to eat too. So I'd rather spread things out. I'm thinking, especially these days, if it was a group of people that I don't live with, I'd want to have things that would be more separate, that people will just be able to serve their own. For example, here's some dried cranberries. Those are going to be easier to pick up with a spoon. Or the raspberries. A suggestion I read is if you don't live with people, you probably can, it would help if you would give people their own serving devices. So you don't even share a serving spoon, you share your own. So I would put things more in containers these days than I might sometimes. Put out another cookie for the crackers. You can have fresh fruit, strawberries, of course, another red fruit that goes well with chocolate. You can have dried fruit, like these dried cranberries. Dried tart cherries would be really good. It can be chocolate covered fruit. This is chocolate covered dried cherries. And these happen to have red on the outside, which makes them really good for the color scheme. You could have, what should I be doing? Pull them toward me. Okay, to see more. You could have nuts. You could have chocolate covered nuts. Of course you could. Another thing to do is to have a dip to go with your fruit. Well, for me, chocolate dip, that's ganache. So for that, you just melt equal weights of some chocolate, usually bittersweet chocolate. Once again, I'd use my 60% Ghirardelli chips, my best friends, and heavy cream, equal weights of each, melt them together gently. If you have regular cream, not heavy cream, fine. If you'd like something sweeter, you can use milk chocolate. That goes particularly well with strawberries because strawberries are generally pretty wimpy in flavor. They don't hold up that well to bittersweet chocolate. If you want to go with the color scheme of red and white and you like really sweet, use white chocolate for your ganache. Ooh, that would make a lovely dip. And people can put that on anything. Particularly good with raspberries. For the raspberry jam, I suggested if you like sweeter, a tart cherry can be good. You could do something even sweeter like that Stonewall Kitchens company I see in Vons a lot. They have strawberry champagne jam or raspberry, trying to remember what their raspberry peach something they had lately. The jam I put out for you is one I happen to like. I like jams that have more fruit than sugar because they taste more like fruit. This one is called Crofters and they're in all the stores. They're a Canadian company and it's organic and lovely. Sorry about the frequent tech challenges of my ear. If you have all these things on a tray, and I think this tray would probably serve 4 to 6 people, maybe, you really have enough. I'm the kind of person that would think, oh, I'd like to make this and this and this. But if you think about how much you're really going to eat, that's probably enough. If you want to do more, what I would probably add next is I would use regular graham crackers, make them myself if I was really energetic, to go with the cheese ball and keep the cookies elsewhere. Then I would probably next, if I was expanding, make brownies with raspberry jam and fresh raspberries in them, cut them in hearts, and just before I serve them, put a little dollop of ganache on top so I could put a fresh raspberry. Then I'd probably swap out the jam for something else. And the next thing I think I would do would be to make chocolate meringue kisses, because we have that shape that we interpret as kisses thanks to the Hershey's company these days. What else? You can do some decor. For a pop of color, as the expression goes, chocolate foil covered hearts come in nice bright colors. So I think those can be fun to put here and there on a tray and brighten up the colors. You can get C's, you can get Dove at any store, and there's other brands of that. Here's something fun I found at Trader Joe's is these lovely chocolate hearts, Belgian chocolate. They've got praline filling. I sampled this morning to find out, and yes, it's quite tasty. And those are 7 of them in a package for $1.50. How can you go wrong? I found those at Trader Joe's. And in their ad, they didn't even mention those. They should have done that. You might also have something like cupcake picks, as they're called, plastic, so things won't be edible, but you could do some. I was thinking it would be fun to decorate the top of my chocolate cheese ball with one of those decorations. For serving things relatively sanitarily, you could have little cups if you wanted for people to put their jam or their ganache on. I think they could just take their plate, put some jam on it, put some ganache on it, eat it on their own with it just from the plate. What else? They have little cups that things could go in. You can have a bowl out with serving spoons for people to serve their own. Toothpicks are great for putting in your slices of salami, possibly in the cheese ball. You can get really small spoons that I have an idea for some of these things to fit in, and I'm going to do my ear here. Now I have one more major idea before I'd like to hear your ideas. This would be really fun, I think, for a larger gathering where you wanted more kinds of food than this delightful sort of thing, which would be to do side by side the visual puns of a sweet tray and a savory tray. So on one, the sweet one, you would have the chocolate salami. On the savory one, a regular salami. The sweet cheese ball, the savory cheese. Probably rectangular graham crackers, regular salty crackers. The jam for a spread and maybe a savory jam. You could do chocolate covered nuts and nuts. You could do fruit on either, really, that goes either way, but maybe fruit on the sweet tray and vegetables on the savory tray. You could really go far out by doing something like cut mango or papaya into sticks, probably with lemon juice on them, so it would look like carrot sticks, honeydew melon, and celery sticks, something like that to really have a good time. For your tray, you can use anything. It doesn't have to be a wood board, typical for charcuterie. It can be a tray, it can be a plate. That's fine. You can use anything you want. Do you happen to have an old heart-shaped candy box from chocolate for some reason? That would be a really cute way to display things. For a Valentine idea, another thing you could do is make an arrow to somehow go with your platter. You could use the tube cookies, like Purine kind of cookies for the body, or for smaller, you could use those little Pocky sticks, or they have little cookies like that at Trader Joe's. For the point of it, you could use a wedge of cheese, like the Laughing Cow little relatively sweet cheese, and push onto the top of it some dried cranberries or some dried cherries. For small amounts of dried fruit, if you're lucky and you're around a store that has started having bulk bins again, you can get small amounts. Like I got organic dried cranberries at Sprouts for that, without having to get a lot of something. I think I have run through my ideas and probably left out some of the things I was going to say. What I would like to do is hear what your questions are and your suggestions for the kind of fun you can have here, which because I do not have chat up, I will ask Suzanne to please pass those along, and your ideas for what to do with a tray, because I'm hoping that you can use some of these recipes, you can use some of these ideas so that you can go and have the fun of being a little Cupid with your own charcuterie, your own chocuterie, any time of year. Thank you.
Deborah, this is really beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
So impressive.
And so easy.
Group, really lovely. We have a small enough group that if members would like to just call out their question or comment, you're welcome to.
Tell people I can just pipe up.
Mentioned from Grace Ball, it's great. So many of your ideas would work for people who have to eat gluten-free. Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. And if you had some gluten-free kind of cookie, you could even be making the salami with that. So you wouldn't have to miss anything at all.
Did you say how long that that chocuterie log would last? How far in advance could you do that in the freezer?
Okay, thank you. The chocolate salami, if you have a nice cold freezer, it could sit there for a couple of months. It would freeze that well. Keeping it in the fridge is probably keep about a week, I'd say. Mm-hmm. And then the same thing, that this powdered sugar would soak in eventually once it's powdered, unless you went and bought some of the non-melting sugar, which you can get at specialty places. Mm-hmm. The cream cheese ball would also probably freeze for a couple of months. They have nothing that's going to go stale in them. So I heartily encourage you to make double recipe, to make, even if you only need one salami's worth, make both and freeze the other one. If you make double the cheese ball, by gosh, you'd use an entire regular block of cream cheese. Then you don't have to figure out how to wrap up that other half. You know, do you keep the heavy foil or do you use that plastic wrap? And you don't have to measure half a stick of butter. You can just put the whole thing in. You also don't have to have them in these shapes to freeze them. You could do any shape you wanted and any size. You could have it in individual portions. I was thinking if for more sanitary reasons on the cheese ball these days you wanted to have individual servings, you could make little tiny cheese balls. They'd be very cute. They wouldn't look like the visual pun, but they'd be delicious and they'd be really cute. So you can play with all this. You just can't really freeze the pomegranate.
I like the individual cheese balls. We're already starting to think about, for the fall, our grand opening of our new center, and we'll definitely have to go in the direction of individual servings and things. So that's really lovely.
Yeah, that's one thing nice about these, and you could make the chocolate salami thing in small bits. I mean, you can serve it with toothpicks, but you could also be making that in fun and funky shapes for individual servings.
So do you have a party happening?
Well, Jim and I will probably be chowing down here after we're done. He's smiling on the other side of the camera. No, we don't, unfortunately. So I think I'm going to freeze this cheese ball. You have friends coming next week.
It looks beautiful. Members, any questions or comments?
Oh, I've thought of something. Of the many things I've forgotten to say. The chocolate salami idea is popular in various countries in the world. I think I may have said that most typically in Italy, also Russia. I've read about it in Poland, in Hungary, in various places in the world. If you were making this in Great Britain, you would probably take that warm mix, put it in a loaf pan. That's how they do it. They call it chocolate biscuit cake. So
Hmm.
fun idea from various places in the world.
And again, you can vary those kinds of things and put like dried fruit or chopped up fruit, things like that, right?
Yes, dried fruit, chopped up fruit. The America's Test Kitchen recipe I have, they actually use ladyfingers. Unusual to see a recipe with a softish cookie, and they include alcohol-soaked dried fruit, like dried cherries.
Oh, nice.
I thought Suzanne would like that.
Okay. All right. Hearing no other questions or comments from our members, we're just going to thank you for this fabulous presentation. This was really beautiful.
Well,
Presentation was just fantastic.
well, thank you, and thank you for the excuse to do this and play with it. And I hope you all go out and play with it yourselves. Go stand in the produce section. Not that I like to spend a lot of time in the store these days. Look around for fruit or even vegetables that would go with things that you want to put together. Look at the cookie and cracker aisle to see what inspiration you get. Look around the candy section and look around the dedicated holiday section at a store for candies to see what you like. Another thought about all these things, the three recipes I gave you, none of them use the oven, which is really good. I was thinking I would tell you that it's really good in the summer in hot weather, so you don't have to turn on the oven, but it was 88 here in Carlsbad yesterday, so apparently it applies in February too.
Well, thank you. You've seen applause from everybody all around. So thank you so very much, Deborah.
Well, thank you, everyone.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy
Bye-bye.
Valentine's Day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.